Today we are making my famous banana bread, and we are starting with greasing and flouring our loaf pan. As y'all know, I like to take 1 tablespoon of melted butter, 1 tablespoon of flour, and mix that together. We're going to brush this in the bottom of the pan and also on the sides of the pan because this is nonstick. It'll make us get a good rise on our bread. We also are going to be toasting some walnuts, and we're going to be adding a few things: a pinch of salt, a little bit of ground vanilla, and we're going to toss that along with some olive oil. And then we're going to bake it in the oven at 375 for about 10 to 12 minutes till they just get browned. Now for our dry ingredients, we have 2 cups of flour, 3/4 cup of granulated sugar, 3/4 teaspoon of baking soda, and half a teaspoon of salt. And for our spices, we have 1 tablespoon of vanilla beans and 3/4 of a teaspoon of cinnamon. I'm going to also grate in some fresh nutmeg, about 1 teaspoon's worth. And as y'all know, I really love fresh nutmeg, so whenever there is cinnamon present or any of those kinds of spices, I always want to make sure that I add it in. And again, just really freshly grate that right off of the nutmeg. Now we're going to chop these. We want them to be coarsely chopped, so not fine, just coarse. And I'm going to speed this up just a little bit so you can see me doing that. And then I'm going to show you, this is exactly what we're looking for. So we want to be able to see the walnuts, but not be so big that they're going to, sink to the bottom of the dough. We're going to add those walnuts into the flour mixture. And we are going to just go ahead and mix all of those dry ingredients and the flour mixture all together along with those walnuts and get them ready for our next stage. So I'm going to make sure it's a good coating, that all of the spices get evenly distributed, and also that the baking soda and the walnuts get evenly distributed throughout this flour mixture. All right. And now for our wet ingredients, we have a 1/4 cup of plain yogurt. We have 2 eggs. We also have 3 ripe bananas. You'll see how speckled they are, which means they're really sweet. And then we have 6 tablespoons of butter. They were separated into 4 tablespoons and 2 tablespoons, and that's our wet ingredients. We're going to brown the 4 tablespoons of butter first. And this is just going to give us additional depth of flavor. So I'll just speed this up a little bit and we'll get through the full browning process pretty quickly. The important thing is to keep the butter moving so it doesn't burn on you. It's a really fine line, but when it starts to smell walnutty or nutty, generally speaking, that's when you know that it's ready to go. We're now going to add that browned butter to the 2 tablespoons of butter we reserved, and we're going to mix that together. This just helps cool down the butter so that it's ready to be used right away, but it's still melted in that liquid form to be included in the wet portion of this recipe. And so I'm just going to take a spatula and just swirl that around and get that 2 tablespoons of butter melted into the browned butter. And you can see that beautiful golden color. It's got this great nutty flavor, and it adds just even more depth to, as I said, my world famous best banana bread, which starts with browned butter and also those walnuts that I made earlier is another secret, plus the yogurt. All right, we're going to be moving on. So for the bananas, the best way to do this is you're going to squeeze the bananas a little bit in your hand, kind of get them mushed up, and that helps them come out and already does half of the job for you. So after you've mushed them a little bit, you're going to just put them all into a bowl, and then using a fork, you're going to smash them up in the bowl so that they're all macerated. It's pretty easy. They should be ripe and they should be speckled just like the ones that I use here. That means that they're at the maximum sweetness and it's perfect for banana bread. So we're going to just make sure that those are completely mushed and we've got them all in a uniform. All right, now we're going to lightly beat the eggs and get them ready to go as well. We don't want to add any air. We just don't want the yolk and the white of the eggs separated. We're going to go ahead and add that right into our bananas. Next, we're going to add the yogurt. finally, we're going to add the browned butter. Again, look at that beautiful color. It's going to add so much beautiful, like caramely, nutty flavor to the bread. It's so good. And then we're going to go ahead and add 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Can't hurt to have some additional vanilla extract. We are going to take a wooden spoon and we are going to go ahead and mix all of these wet ingredients until they are combined. Now I'll say this, you can't overmix the wet ingredients and the dry ingredients separately. The only time you can start to overmix is once the wet and the dry come together. So here you don't have to be shy, just mix to your heart's content till everything is uniform and it looks like it's ready to be added to our dry mixture that we made earlier. And so we're going to bring that back into the mix, and we've got our dry and our wet. We're going to add them together and we're going to just fold. So this is really important. We don't want to overmix, so just fold it in. Then we're going to add it and spoon it into our loaf pan that we prepared earlier. And then I'm going to use these pure maple flakes. I'm just going to get them all over the top. This just adds a little crackle, a little sweetness, a little something to the top. You could also use a little bit of brown sugar. We're going to be baking this in a 350-degree oven for 55 minutes. I usually check it about halfway through. And once it comes out, you're going to cool it in the pan for 5 minutes. You're then going to invert it and cool it the rest of the way on a wire rack, or you can slice right away and enjoy this wonderful treat warm right out of the oven. Thanks for coming along this journey. I hope you have a great banana bread.